Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. This is a webinar where you get to ask about Lyme disease. None of our webinars are the same because each one is designed by your questions. So I'm glad to see that there's a number of people here that are new here tonight, and I'm glad to see a lot of familiar names on my message board as well too. So the way that you participate is to create questions, and the way you can do that is over on the right-hand side of the screen down here at the bottom is a chat box. In that chat box, go ahead and write your question and then click your enter key to send it to me. Ask that you only hit the enter key one time during the question because hitting the enter key actually sends a complete question to me. So if you hit the enter key multiple times trying to create paragraphs, it literally creates multiple questions that get to be a little bit difficult for me to follow on my end. I am creating a recording of the webinar tonight, and that should be available tomorrow morning. I will try to have it ready somewhere by 9:30 or 10 Central Standard Time, but sometimes that has to be handled a little bit loose. It all depends on how well my editing goes this evening and whether those get saved correctly by YouTube, which is who does the recording of this for me. You should get an email somewhere around 9:30 or 10 tomorrow morning with information about how to watch the recording. Also, it'll have information about how to sign up for next week's webinar too. So I do have another one scheduled for next week and one scheduled at this time for the week after that as well too. And then we'll probably take a week off after that. In terms of the recording, if you happen not to get the email, there's still many ways that you can see that recording. Number one, take a look at my homepage at treatlyme.net, which is Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. Okay, down at the bottom of that page, you can see the recording. You can also find it on the webinars page at that website too. At my store, which is Marty Ross MD Supplements, also on the homepage. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see the recording too. And then finally, you can find it on Facebook. I usually post it on Facebook. My first Facebook page is facebook.com/treatlyme. Let's see. The other thing would be on my YouTube page as well too. And you can actually get to the YouTube page just by clicking at the top of my Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD website. There's a YouTube icon. Click there and you'll get to my YouTube channel. Okay. And while I'm thinking about it, I've been late about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did start doing posts of information that I've been putting mostly on Facebook. Whenever I create something new, I put it out on Facebook that it's done. But I'm also starting to do that now on Instagram. So if anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Marty Ross MD. That's my name there. I'm also getting more active on Twitter as well too, and the Twitter account is Treatlyme, TREATLYME. If you're wanting to see both of those pages on my information site, Treatlyme by Marty Ross MD, go up to the top, right at the top corner, you'll see the Twitter, the Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram icons. Just click on any of those, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So if you want to follow me on those places, that's where you would go ahead and do that as well too. All right. All right. I think that's the business end of things tonight. So I will go ahead and post the questions so that everyone can see them, unless ahead of time, I think the question is going to be too long. So during the live webinar, you can read the question on the screen. Now I still read the question to you because in the recorded version it doesn't show up on the screen. However, if a question is really monster long, which I hope that many of you don't do monster long questions, they get to be a little bit harder to go through. But the really long ones I have to read because if I try to post it, it locks my screen and then we have to end the webinar. So there may be, I know that I've seen just in advance, just clicking through here quickly, there was one pretty long question and which I will answer, but I think that is one I'm probably not going to be able to post. Anyhow. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I do see Carly says, hi, Dr. Ross. Hello, Carly. I'm not going to post that one, but good to see you here. Let me get rid of that. All right. All right. Hello, Thomas. Let's see. Hi, Marty. I'm about 2 years out of my low point with chronic neurologic Lyme. While I feel pretty good now, 2 things have remained and bother me daily. In fact, these 2 things are starting to worsen. One is tinnitus, and 2 is a constant lightheadedness that's worse when moving and also much worse first thing in the morning. At times, there is a disturbing wave after wave of a movement or vibration feeling that makes me uncomfortable. Squeeze my eyes shut. I've tried amitriptyline, which seemed to help at one time, but not any longer. Thoughts? Okay, so everyone, tinnitus is ringing in the ears. One of the big causes of it can be neurologic injury to the inner ear hearing apparatus. Sometimes that can be related. Medicines from Lyme can cause that. Sometimes it just happens as part of life and aging. Sometimes it happens from the medications or the germ, the Lyme germ as well too. Okay, the lightheadedness that's worse when moving. I guess I'm going to have a little difficulty answering that part of your question. So, and here's why. So lightheadedness to everyone means different things. And I would need to ask you some qualifying questions to help figure that out. So if you're talking spinning lightheadedness, like a dizzy vertigo lightheadedness, that may mean something going on with your inner ear. If you're talking, I feel kind of cloudy lightheadedness, that is a different situation. Okay, so let me just talk about tinnitus first of all. So tinnitus, there's a whole article that I do have on it at Treat Lyme. So I'll show it to you later. But one of the things, it's a complicated problem. It's hard to deal with sometimes. And the things that I have found helpful in my practice when I was practicing, one is sometimes people getting acupuncture can help. Getting needled, getting acupuncture, working with somebody. It's a difficult problem. Sometimes it's going to take about a good 8 or so treatments to get it to budge if the acupuncture is going to work, okay? And if you're working with an acupuncturist, it is possible they may be able to address some of that lightheaded feeling you're having as well too, all right? All right, second thing that can sometimes help with that tinnitus is a type of osteopathic massage treatment called craniosacral therapy, which involves putting extremely light pressure on the head to cause changes in how the spinal fluid flows in the brain. I have had some patients have benefit getting that done. If you're trying to locate somebody that might be able to do that, sometimes massage therapists will do it. Sometimes osteopathic doctors will do it. That's where it comes out of, is out of what's called osteopathic medicine. But there are other MDs like myself that got trained in how to do it as well too. Many of us learn how to do it through a place called the Upledger Institute. That's UPLEDGER Institute. If you were to just Google them, they have a doctor finder or a practitioner finder section on their page, and you can probably find somebody that's near you. Okay. All right. Herbally, there is ginkgo biloba, which helps increase blood flow to areas of the brain and of nerves. Okay, so it helps the blood flow more easily into really, really small blood vessels. Sometimes can be helpful, not all the time. And that is 80 milligrams twice a day if you're going to try to give it a good 4 to 6 months of treatment to see if it's going to make a difference too. Okay. All right. So those are just some things I would do to target tinnitus. Okay. Now, at least that's what I would do with in my practice when I was there. Okay. Now, about this lightheadedness, if your lightheadedness has a motion quality to it, or a spinning, or a what we call vertigo quality to it, I would make sure that you've been evaluated by an ear, nose, and throat doctor to see if there isn't something going on in your inner ear that they might be able to fix. Okay, there are some problems that can be fixed with that. Okay, but if not, sometimes what that lightheadedness is just due to ongoing injury of the brain, sometimes from not having, I'd say, adequate fuel supply to heal itself. Okay, so every one of our cells in our body, including our nerve cells, have energy factories called mitochondria. Okay, and mitochondria from chronic infection, when you have chronic infection in you, one of the things the immune system does to try to get rid of those infections is it overproduces oxidizing agents. And oxidizing agents can damage the covering on mitochondria. They can also damage your nerve cell membrane. So the nerve cell membrane, as well as the mitochondria membrane, are made up of fats, and a double layer of fats, actually. And those fats can get injured by the oxidizing agents, and it causes it so the mitochondria don't work well, and it can lead to nerve injury. Now, the things I'm talking about in this aspect for your lightheadedness also can help with nerve repair, like the tinnitus kind of nerve repair as well too. So in addition for the tinnitus, to considering some of those things I just talked about, acupuncture, cranial sacral, and doing ginkgo biloba, when I was treating people, if I had a situation like this, the other things I would do is to try to repair mitochondria and try to repair the membranes of the nerves. And there's two things I would consider with my patients. Okay, one is I would have them take something called NT factor. NT factor is a supplement that's made up of the fats that make up that mitochondria membrane. Okay, and the way that it works, they should also help repair the cell membrane of your nerves as well too. It's a product that's actually made by Research Nutritionals. It's not approved for doing nerve repair. It's not approved for any of this, but it does help, and that is especially with the mitochondria repair. And the way you start it is as 2 pills 3 times a day, and you do that for about 2 months, and then after 2 months, for 4 more months, you do 1 pill 3 times a day. Okay. Now, if by 2 months you're not getting a benefit out of it, just stop it. Okay. The other thing I would like to do in situations like this is to also have a person take glutathione. And that is to use actually liposomal glutathione, which is glutathione that's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase its absorption. All right. The reason glutathione is a very strong antioxidant that is made in every cell in our body, but it's used in cells to repair damage. Okay. And so the problem is when we have cells that are actually injured, sometimes they exhaust their glutathione supply. So sometimes we need to build it back up. So the way to do that is a liposomal variety. For that, I've had success in my practice working with something called Trifortify by Research Nutritionals. And you would want to do a teaspoon or 5 milliliters of that 1 time a day. Okay. All right. So those are some things to think about. Those are things I would do with my patients and would have some benefit. They might work for you. That's something for you to consider. And if you have a physician, you might want to talk with them about that as well too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Thomas. Thank you for that question. Oh, let me just do a quick screen share here too. Bear with me here a minute. Okay, so this is my Lyme disease information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. Up here at the top, on top right hand there, those are my icons for my Facebook page, my YouTube page, my Instagram page, and my Twitter. Okay, and again, I've gotten more active on all these. So if you want to start following me there, you'll get more. You can see when I've posted things even before I send out my newsletters. Okay, all right. And then in terms of the tinnitus, let me see here. Yeah, there's an article called Natural. It's this one. It's called Natural Tinnitus Treatments in Lyme Disease. Okay. All right. So you might take a look at that one. All right. And then I think, let me see what I did with this one. Oh, yeah. A couple of the, for the tinnitus also, what is helpful is to decrease coffee and alcohol intake. Okay. All right. All right. And then let's see, in terms of glutathione, there's an article I have on that. You can take a look there. Okay, glutathione, the great fixer is what I call it. And I actually have a separate article on the NT factor phospholipids and how they work. Okay, and that article is called NT factor phospholipids. Okay, all right. All right. Thanks for your question, Thomas. Good luck to you. Hello, Al. Let's see. If one has a good probiotic with 90 billion live cultures, 12 strain, brand is Renew Life Ultimate Flora, would one also need to add Saccharomyces boulardii, or it's called Sacro B, or is that unnecessary? Also, what is your take on ceftriaxone? Are delayed release tablets of doxy more effective than the doxy capsules? Okay. So in terms of probiotics, many of you may know, I just posted up a new article that I completed 2 days ago now about probiotics, okay? And I describe under what situations would you want to use certain types of probiotics. And I break them down into 3 types. I break them down into those bacteria that are found within our intestines naturally, okay? Those are lactobacillus and bifidobacterium probiotics, which is what I think this Renew Life is. I don't know the product, but If it's got bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, that means it's a kind of bacteria that normally live in our intestines, okay? All right. Second kind of group of probiotics are what are called spore-forming soil-based probiotics. These are bacteria that don't normally live in our intestines, but they develop a spore, which means that they are heat stable, and meaning they don't need to be refrigerated, okay? And they are acid stable, so they have an easier time getting through the stomach, our stomach acid. They probably don't populate our intestines when we take them, versus the lactobacillus bifidobacterium ones do populate our intestines. However, they probably work, these soil-based spore-forming ones probably work best by helping the good bacteria that's already in our intestines to keep living. And they also support the good bacteria that live there, okay? So they help promote the healthy bacteria living in the face of antibiotics, et cetera, okay? All right. Third kind of probiotic would be Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a yeast. It's actually not a bacteria. And it's a healthy yeast that's found in our intestines. And there's some scientific evidence that it is helpful at treating a type of bacteria overgrowth problem in your intestines called C. difficile. Many of you may be familiar with the idea that when you take antibiotics, sometimes people get diarrhea because there's a bacteria called C. difficile that lives in our intestines that grows too much. And when it grows too much, it releases a toxin and gives diarrhea, okay? Sacro B can help with C. difficile. It can help in terms of being part of the treatment, but it also can help prevent C. difficile, all right? So in terms of Sacro B, I usually in my practice was only recommending it for people that either had C. difficile diarrhea or had at one time had C. difficile diarrhea, and I wanted to have it as part of their probiotic regimen as a preventative to keep them from getting C. difficile again. Okay, so that's usually the only situation I was using it in my practice. Okay, now in terms of the human strains, the Lactobacillus bifidobacterium versus using the soil-based strains, my preference with my patients was to use the soil-based strains because they were easier, right? They didn't need to be refrigerated. Okay, I would have a person use both the soil-based strains and the human type strains in situations where there was yeast overgrowth and we were having a hard time getting those yeast under control. In that situation, I wanted to give them the human type probiotics that can actually repopulate, as well as the soil-based spore-forming ones to help support the existing bacteria there and help support those new ones they were taking in terms of those human bacteria to take hold. Okay. All right. So I hope that's kind of long-winded. I'll show you the article here in a minute. If you haven't seen it, it answers this question specifically. Okay. All right. In terms of ceftriaxone is an IV antibiotic. It's made just for intravenous administration. It is useful if you decide you want to go with IV antibiotics. It can be quite good, actually. But in terms of oral versus IV antibiotics in chronic Lyme, my experience was that orals worked about 90% of the time, and that IV antibiotic-based treatments might work up to 95% of the time. Okay, so you get a 5% increased chance of getting help by using IV versus oral antibiotics. Okay, that's what I saw in my practice. Now, having said that, what I will tell you is on the East Coast, the East Coast doctors tend to be IV antibiotic doctors. They tend to use a lot more IV antibiotics than the West Coast doctors where I was practicing. Okay, now who gets better outcomes? Who knows? No one's ever done studies to tell us. All right, but what I can tell you is I think we were doing pretty good just by generally using oral antibiotics. And the problem with IV is there's risk. Okay, so the risk of IV antibiotics are cost, because insurance companies usually only going to pay for it for 1 month. And they can be quite expensive. Okay. Second risk is having to have something called a central line or an IV line that's put in that's left in place. And there's a risk that those IV lines can get blood clots at the tip of them, okay, and also that they can get infected. And that happens maybe about 15 to 20% of the time over about a 6-month period of using one of these lines. So there's risk involved. And I think for most people, my opinion is, based on what I saw, for most people, the risk of doing IV is not worth it. You can do good treatments with oral antibiotic regimens. Okay. All right. All right. And then in terms of the sustained delayed release doxy versus the regular doxy, my experience was that the short release works just as well. Okay. And it's going to be less expensive than the delayed release as well, too. All right. And part of the thing is the way that doxy works best is not to have a sustained level in your blood. The kill dynamics of doxy is you want to have a high peak dose. It's the high dose that you take right after you take the pills that does the killing. It's not a sustained dose that does the killing, okay? That compares with a ceftriaxone, for instance, or the penicillins like amoxicillin. They tend to work best if you can keep the level higher for a more prolonged period of time, okay? Because they work by constantly bathing the germ versus the doxycyclines, the tetracyclines, tend to work best by getting an immediate high peak dose, okay? So for instance, although this may be hard to stomach, usually when I would treat with doxycycline, I was using 2 100 milligram pills twice a day. Some of my colleagues were using 4 100 milligram pills one time a day. Now, the difficulty with that is a lot of nausea happens with those tetracyclines, and it can be hard to stomach that regimen, okay? But if you could stomach it, that might even be the most effective way of using the doxycycline. All right? All right. So I hope that answered your question. Let me do a quick screen share here. I'll show you my new probiotic article here. All right. So if ever you're wanting to know what's the latest things I've been doing, you can either follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or just periodically go to my online guide and look over here and click on this tab called The Latest, okay? And so whenever I post something new, I also put it in The Latest page, and I put the most recent ones at the top, okay? So the most recent article is this one I just posted a couple days ago, okay? All right. All right. Thanks, Al. Good luck to you. Okay. Bill, hello. So, Bill, your question's a bit long for me to post. Okay. I'm going to try to go through this and see. I'm going to read it out loud. So, and bear with me, everyone, as I'm reading it. There may be a lot of information here. Given the length of this question, if it becomes apparent to me as I'm reading it that it's too complicated for this kind of form, I'll let you know and I'll stop reading it. Okay. I have not looked at it other than I know it's a lengthy one. But let me go ahead and see if we can give a stab at it here. Okay. So hello, Dr. Ross. This is a follow-up from our comments about yeast and cytokines from my last posting a month ago. I had a recurrence of clinical symptoms after being treated for 2 years on antibiotics. Current symptoms are pain in the hamstring, tendons, waking up at 3 a.m. every night with my feet on fire, lasting for an hour, then get back to sleep, memory issues, cardiac arrhythmias, intermittent abdominal rash, as well as gas and bloating. Based on your comments about yeast and cytokines, I did do a 1 month of diflucan and nystatin, but there was no change. I get the bloating only after the evening meal, then lots of flatulence the following morning. Then I am fine until the evening meal again. I am currently treating for SIBO using a serapeptase, Corbiotic, HMF forte, Saccharomyces boulardii, liposomal glutathione, monolaurin, garlic, oregano, berberine, cytoquel, and biocidin, transfer factor multiimmune, and L-glutamine. So far, after 2 weeks, no change. Your thoughts? Also trying to sort out whether Borrelia or the co-infection that I had, Bartonella, and Mycoplasma are still causing the other clinical signs. Did repeat the ELISpot, all negative. Did have a slight Coxsackie virus IgA titer of 1 to 100. My LMD treats on the blood testing and has discharged me because I am in immunologic remission. With burning sensation in my feet, insomnia, and abdominal rash, I would like to try one of your treatments for Bartonella and continue with your immune support protocol for questionable virus titer. Your thoughts? All right. So just a couple of points here. Number one, in my practice, when somebody would be doing better and then suddenly get worse, whether they were on treatment or off treatment, the first thing I would always try to consider is, was there too many yeast growing in the intestines? Okay, and that's what I had suggested or discussed with you last time, described that I found helpful in similar situations with my patients. Okay, and the reason to look for yeast first and to try to treat them, it's something that I found helpful about 85% of the time actually, is that when you're set up, if you've been treated for Lyme with either herbal or prescription antibiotics, you're at an increased risk of having too many yeast living in your or grow in your intestines. They live there anyhow, but they can grow too much. Okay, and if they grow too much, they trigger the immune system to overproduce cytokines. Cytokines are also overproduced by the immune system when you have Lyme. And it's these cytokines that give you fatigue, make it so you can't think, make you hurt all over, make your immune system not work well, interfere with how your hormones work, et cetera. Okay, so when we say somebody has Lyme disease symptoms, what they really have are excess cytokine symptoms, all right? So if somebody starts doing worse, you've got to start asking, what are the other things that trigger excess cytokines? And the most immediate possibility is too many yeast, okay? So Bill, you tried that, you didn't get anywhere, okay? All right, now, just one comment about your treating for SIBO. Maybe you have SIBO, it's hard to tell. All gassiness is not necessarily SIBO, okay? So the one thing I would do with my patients to be sure it was SIBO is to do a SIBO breath test. There's actually a laboratory test you can do to see do you have too many bacteria from your large intestines that have moved into your small intestines. That's called SIBO. Okay, that stands for small intestine bacteria overgrowth. That's the bacteria that are supposed to be living below, move up into the small intestines to give you like gassiness. And there is a breath test that you can do to see if that is what the problem is. Okay, and before I would treat somebody for SIBO, that generally is what I would try to do. Okay, now, if a person came back and their SIBO test was negative, another thing to consider in a situation like this, okay, where you've got a lot of GI symptoms, you've treated for yeast, it's not getting better, it's not SIBO, then the other thing to consider that I would consider in my practice is, are there parasites growing in the intestines that also are triggering too many cytokines, okay, all right? So that's something to explore. And then finally, the other thing that can sometimes give neurologic syndromes and give you a lot of gassiness and bloating is if you have something called celiac disease, which is a problem, an immunologic problem with your intestines absorbing and working with wheat and wheat-like products, okay? And one thing that I would do with patients I was considering that is eliminate wheat from their diet, see if they had any improvements, but also I would send them to a GI specialist who could do some blood testing and maybe even look down into the small intestines to see is that what's going on? Okay, all right. So, Bill, I don't have a set answer for you, and the reason I don't is there's a lot going on with you. I would need to actually ask you a lot of questions if I was to give you direct advice, and I can't. I'm practicing, or I'm not even practicing. I live in Texas now where I'm not licensed to practice, so I can't do a visit with people anymore where I ask them questions directly. That would be called practicing without a license, okay? I can answer questions in this kind of form. I just kind of use your questions to generally describe situations where I saw patients like that, what I would do with those patients based on my practice experience. In that case, I'm just kind of describing the history of what I do, okay? But in a situation like this, there's a number of things I would look at. Yeast, you already did that. SIBO, but the best way to look for SIBO is to test. Consider parasites. I show you an article in a minute you can take a look at about how do you figure out if you might have too many parasites, okay? And then the other thing is you might consider getting some testing for celiac, okay? All right, those are just my thoughts. I don't have enough information to give you the best answer because I don't get to ask you a bunch of questions, okay? All right, let me just do a quick screen share here real quick. All right, so in terms of parasites, this is the article. It's called How and When to Treat Parasites in Lyme Disease, okay? I talk about how to do the testing, issues with testing, et cetera. But take a look at that one too, all right? Good luck to you, Bill. Hello, Byron. Hi, Dr. Ross. I'm currently being treated for Lyme, Bartonella, and Babesia. I have been on Doxy since September 2018, and then my doctor added Malarone and Rifampin in December 2018. The Malarone has been the hardest medication to tolerate from a sense of the spacey feeling and feeling slightly sad and flat. My doctor tried me on artemisinin, but it didn't work, so was put back on the Malarone. Is there any supplements I can take to help feel better, mood, neuro, while on this treatment protocol? And are there any long-term permanent side effects that will be irreversible post-treatment? How do you know what is an antibiotic versus Lyme co-infection symptoms? I have tried CoQ10, but taking a couple of days off the Malarone, but I know I can't sustain the long-term during this treatment. Any advice would be super grateful, and thank you for helping the Lyme community with your work. Byron in New York. You're welcome. Byron, bear with me here, man. I want to make sure I understand the full sense of this. Hold on just a minute here. Doxy. So in terms of trying to figure out if a medication is giving you the side effect, the easiest way to find out is stop it. After talking over with your doctor, stop it as an experiment to see being off of that medication, do those symptoms get better? Okay, that's the way you pinpoint as to whether it is a medication or whether it is a germ giving the problem. Okay, now Malarone, as well as Rifampin, both have the possibility of giving some sadness, giving depression. Okay, I did see that a number of times in my practice. For those kind of situations, what I would do with my patients is either try to take them off, see if things got better, look for alternatives, okay, that you could use to treat. Or if it was the only things we could do is to be on those medicines, if I didn't have any other options, then it would be down to managing symptoms. In terms of things that I have found helpful for depression, that I would try on these kind of patients, one is St. John's wort. That can help raise a chemical called serotonin. Okay, may help raise serotonin, I should say. The other option would be to take something called 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is one of the building blocks for serotonin as well, too. Okay, take a look in terms of those two herbs. I have written about them in my, I'll show you here real quick, so you can read more and see if it's something that would be right for you. And again, I'd probably talk it over with your physician, or I would suggest talking over with your physician as well too. Okay. All right. Let me just do a quick screen share here. Let's see. So I have a section, I think, on, mental health. So take a look at this article that I've written called Depression and Anxiety, Basic Approaches in Natural Medicines. Okay. And the ones that I write about here are compatible with the medicines and supplements that you mentioned in your question as well, too. All right, Byron. Good luck to you. Hello, Wayne. Let's see. Hypothetically, if a patient were to present with the following symptoms, what would be your thoughts on the possible causes, problem that would need further investigation? Well, the problem is, Wayne, I don't know if the symptoms came through. Hold on. Let me see if I can see if there's a second part to your question. Bear with me here a minute. Oh, here we are. The symptoms for the previous message are back problems with severe tension, not improving from a long history of osteopathic, chiropractic, or massage therapies. Nothing showing on x-rays or MRIs, along with these causing a drag on cognitive abilities, including concentration and memory, and causing fatigue and depression. Make sure there's not another part to this. But I don't see another part to this. Okay, so Uh, Wayne, there's many possibilities here. It's hard to say. I would need to do a lot of further questioning to get a better understanding of what's happening here. The one comment I would make is sometimes, and I don't know whether you've done this or not, but when you have ongoing problems with back pain, pain and back pain can be fatiguing. Okay. And sometimes if you can find, if people can find an answer to that, a lot of these other symptoms of fatigue and even the concentration and memory sometimes get better because you're more comfortable. All right. So I don't know that if you've looked at this yet. I can't tell from your question, but one of the things that sometimes is helpful is actually to start strengthening your core muscles. And people that can help you with that are physical therapists and sometimes trainers. Okay. Also, sometimes acupuncture can be helpful in situations like that as well too. But to actually try to figure out what the diagnosis is, I can't tell. I would need a lot more information. All right. Okay. Good luck to you, Wayne. All right. Hello, Eric. Hold on here just a minute. Hi, Dr. Marty. Since being diagnosed with Lyme 6 years ago, I've experienced ongoing random symptoms which seem to repeat themselves. However, in the past couple of weeks, a new symptom of pain on the end of my fingertips began. It is painful for a few hours and then goes away, then back again later in the day or the next. Is this something that you have seen in Lyme patients before? If so, what might be happening? Thanks. I haven't seen this specific situation that you're describing. Okay. If it is neurologic pain, often the quality. So first of all, if I were trying to determine this with a patient, I would be sitting asking a lot of questions. All right. One of the things I would try to figure out is it neurologic pain? Okay. So pain that is neurologic from nerve injury can have any of the following qualities. One is sharp, stabbing, shooting, piercing, burning, or electrical. Okay, those kind of qualities. And if it is that kind of pain, then it could be a manifestation of Lyme because Lyme can injure the nerves. Okay. And if I determined in talking to my patient that it was neurologic, in addition to trying to figure out what infection might still be active so I can treat that, I would be doing things to repair the nerves. All right. And so my protocol that I would use for repairing nerves would be to look at using some glutathione, the liposomal variety. It repairs nerves from the inside. I described this earlier. I would also get on some NT factor to help do some of that repair too. And I might consider using coenzyme Q10. And if it was a vegetarian that doesn't get enough of a protein called carnitine, I might have them supplement carnitine too. Carnitine carries fat to the inside of mitochondrial energy factories found in our nerves, or in every one of our cells. And if you don't have enough of that protein, you don't have enough fat taken to the inside of mitochondria to be burned into cell fuel. Okay. All right. So I've got all this written down in some detail. Let me show you if it is neurologic, and again, I can't tell. I'm postulating. If you answered yes to a number of those questions, it's possible it could be neurologic. Okay. I would hope you're discussing this with your physician as well too. But if it is neurologic, some things that can help with that kind of pain. Let me just show you, to help repair that, to help with the pain. Let me show you an article on that. Okay. All right. So in my brain and nerves chapter, take a look at this article called Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain, or I review what I was just talking about in terms of how to take different things to help with that. Okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you, Eric. And thank you for the question. Hello, Ruth. Let's see. I know that foot pain is primarily a Bartonella hallmark symptom. I have tested negative for BART. I know the tests aren't accurate, but I'm wondering if any other co-infection can cause the symptoms. The pain comes for a week or so and leaves. It is also rather mild, but still noticeable. So, Ruth, in my experience, yes, foot pain can be a symptom of Bartonella. However, the quality of foot pain that's usually associated with Bartonella tends to be more of a pain that shows up every day. It's usually worse in the morning, and often people can walk it off as the day goes on. And it's in the plantar area of the foot. It's in it's in this part of the foot, okay, the bottom, like where people get something called plantar fasciitis. It's usually in that area, okay. Tends to be worse in the morning, often will get better as people start moving around, all right, and pretty much shows up every day. So the nature of what you just described is usually not consistent with what I would see with Bartonella, okay, all right. So in that kind of a situation, when I was treating patients, if I had somebody with something like this, I might send them to a podiatrist just to see, was there something else going on from a architectural dynamic standpoint that a podiatrist might be able to help figure out. Okay, sometimes it means using orthotics, etc. So that's something you might want to review, consider seeing. If you haven't done so, situations like this is where I would have sent one of my patients off to a podiatrist just to get their opinion. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Ruth. Hello, Carly. Let's see. Thank you so much. See, I was on last week's webinar and learned so much. Good to see you back. See, my question is, I have been on doxycycline and Levaquin for Bartonella since early February. I ran out of Levaquin and interrupted my course by 5 days of no Levaquin. I felt all my Bartonella symptoms returning even though I was still taking doxycycline. I resumed the Levaquin and my symptoms are in check. Should I start counting from day one on the day I resumed the Levaquin, or should I just count from the day I originally started in February and continue for 2 to 3 months? Okay, good question. So, so the thing about Bartonella, Carly, you were there last week, but for those of you that were not, I did talk about Bartonella. The difficulty with Bartonella is that in the days you are off of antibiotics, it replicates and comes back fast. Okay, that's the problem. So I know a number of my colleagues try to pulse antibiotics, start and stop them as part of a Bartonella and also as part of a Babesia treatment. And to me, that makes no sense because both of those germs rapidly return. So for instance, Bartonella replicates, it creates babies every 24 hours, okay? So if you're off of those antibiotics for any period of time, you basically have lost ground, all right? So in my practice, what I would do is if somebody was off of their antibiotics and became more symptomatic for Bartonella or Babesia, in your case, Bartonella, and they became more symptomatic, I would start counting at the day we resumed the antibiotics again, okay? So what Carly also's question is how long do I treat? Okay, so typical Bartonella treatment that involves using the drug Levaquin is a 2 to 3 month treatment, all right? The typical length for a treatment that does not use Levaquin, the other types of treatments would be a 4 to 6 month treatment, all right? Now, I know when I recently posted a video about treating Bartonella on my Facebook page, and where I actually said I would use Levaquin more as a later resort because there are problems with it developing tendon pain that doesn't go away or even tendon rupture. And even when I said that in the video, it's very clear saying, even though I call it a tier 1 treatment, it's one of the stronger treatments you can use. It's one of the ones I would resort to last if nothing else could work, because there are risks in using Levaquin, okay? So you need to be aware of this. So the reason I'm saying this is if people are listening in to the recorded version or that you're listening right now, just keep in mind, I'm not necessarily advocating using Levaquin as a first treatment because yes, there are risks, but there are people that can't tolerate, and there are people that don't have the devastating consequences called being floxed. Many of you may have heard of that. And there are situations where it may be helpful. Okay. All right. So my Bartonella treatments, many of you know, I break them into 3 tiers. And I'll show you an article so you can take a look at it. And you can see where the Levaquin falls into that mix. And I'm not going to take time to go through those 3 tiers right now, but I'm going to point you to the article that you can look at later to see what I was talking about here. Okay. All right. Carly, I think that should answer your question. All right. Let me just go ahead and do a quick screen share here. All right, let's see here. So take a look under the infection treatment plans section here. And there's my guide right there called Kills Bartonella Brief Guide. And what you'll see is that I've broken my treatments down into 3 tiers. Tier 1 are the ones that tend to work the best. There's rifamycin-based treatments, Bactrim-based treatments, and fluoroquinolone, which one of the fluoroquinolones is Levaquin. Okay, all right. I think I even say here, yeah, I say use fluoroquinolone-based treatments as a last resort because they occasionally can cause permanent tendon pain or even breakage. Okay, so be careful with that one. All right. Okay, now keep in mind, not everyone gets breakage though, but there is risk. Okay, that's the thing I'm trying to say, Carly. All right, good luck to you. Hello, Judith. Hi, Dr. Ross. I'm just finishing 8 months of Biaxin, Nystatin, and grapefruit seed extract. I felt quite good the last 2 months. Is there a step-down procedure or do I quit all cold turkey? Wondering about continuing Bidecide, grapefruit seed extract, etc. Thank you, and so glad you are back. Thanks, Judith. I think what you mean is I was gone for a couple of weeks. I was here last week, but before that I had to take 2 weeks off as I was back in Fort Wayne, Indiana, helping my brother and my 2 sisters break down my mom's home. We had to move her into an assisted living situation due to a stroke she had, unfortunately. But I am back. I am back. Anyhow, you know, generally, how I operated in my practice was to treat with antibiotics until somebody was either, number 1, symptom-free for 2 months, or number 2, doing very well, maybe not completely symptom-free, but there wasn't anything else, anything else we might try to change to get them to do better. And I can show you the whole list of things you might consider if you're just not all the way there 100%. But if you'd kind of plateaued at a good space for 4 months, then it was time to stop too. Okay. And generally what I would do is if this was their first time being treated and they had gotten to that place, I would just stop everything at once. All right. And I would not tend to leave them on anything to prevent a relapse. All right. Now, I would always talk with them, though, about what do we want to do to prevent a relapse. And for people, they might choose on that first time that they quit to take something that's either herbal or prescription antibiotic to police the environment, to swat down any Lyme that may try to reemerge or go around the immune system. Okay. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the idea, many of us that treat chronic Lyme, my case treated chronic Lyme, because as you all know, I'm not practicing right now, but those of us that have treated chronic Lyme, most of us agree that we probably never get rid of every germ, that the best that we're doing is knocking the germ so it's under control. Your immune system is keeping it under control. Okay. So there is a risk that at some point in the future, those germs may get active and you may relapse. All right. Now, as part of relapse prevention, there's some basic things that you can do. All right. Number 1, do things that help support your immune system. Okay. These are some really basic things, and I outline them in my article. I'll show that to you here in a minute. Number 1, get sleep. All right. Part of the problem when people start doing better, they think that they can start just burning the candle at both ends again. Okay. But keep in mind, sleep supports your immune system. Okay. So make sure you're getting a good 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. All right. Number two, another good thing to do to support the immune system is do some form of exercise that you can tolerate. Okay. That you can tolerate. I want you to hear what I just said. The person that has had Lyme may not have the same kind of tolerance that they did before. All right. So you got to find a level that you can do that is not going to cause you to be worse the next day, basically. All right. But that can help support the immune system. All right. Number three, deal with your emotional toxins. If you've got a lot of things that are stressing you, whatever it takes to deal with them, whether that means getting into counseling, doing meditation, changing your job, changing your spouse. I mean, make the life change. I'm not advocating everyone just leaves their spouse. Don't get me wrong. But if there are things that you can change that you need to change because this the stress from those that is giving you problems, keep in mind all of that stress suppresses your immune system. Okay. So deal with your emotional toxins. All right. Number four, be on a good multivitamin. Okay. Let's see. Number five, you might want to consider being on a supplement to support your immune system. And that could either be mushrooms or it could be something called transfer factors. All right. I'll show you that in the article here in a minute. Okay. And then the last thing is consider, do you want to be on low doses of herbal or prescription antibiotics to police the environment? Okay. Now, if people ask my opinion when I was laying it out with them, generally, if it was a person, it was the first time we've treated them, got them into remission, I would say probably don't need to do the herbal antibiotics. Okay, but if it's a person that has relapsed before, that's the kind of situation that I might consider using a biocidin or using an Otoba and cat's claw together. Okay, but usually in those situations, I would not use it at full dosing I would when I was in active treatment with the patient. I would use it at about half the dose. All right. So like a biocidin, instead of doing a biocidin LSF, instead of doing 2 pumps 3 times a day, what you might do is 1 pump 3 times a day. Okay. Or the Otoba and cat's claw, you might do 15 drops twice a day instead of 30 drops twice a day. Those are the kind of things I would discuss with my patients. Okay. All right. Now, this is all written down. All right. I know I kind of went through it kind of fast. Let me show you the article on that. Okay. But Judith, I hope that gives you some insights on that. Oh, one last thing. So I know earlier tonight, one of the questions was about one of the people that's having a lot of symptoms still. Her provider has said that the person does not have active Lyme because there was a blood test called an ELISpot test that came back negative. Okay, all right. And so so I disagree with that. Okay, but let me talk about that. So I don't think there is a test that shows that you're done with Lyme disease. All right. Some of my colleagues, however, are using a test that was made to diagnose Lyme. They're using it as a test to see if you're done. And that test is called an ELISpot test. What the ELISpot test does is it takes a bunch of white blood cells called T white blood cells from your blood. And then they expose those T white blood cells to proteins from Lyme. And they see, do those T cells react by releasing cytokines? Okay. And if they do release cytokines, it can indicate that they have seen Lyme in you sometime in the last 2 months. All right. All right. So that makes sense. I mean, I can understand people thinking, okay, if the test comes back negative, that means the T cells have not seen Lyme, therefore it's not in you. The trouble is, Lyme can live in you and hide in places that your T white blood cells cannot see them. Okay. So a negative test on an ELISpot does not prove the Lyme is out of you. It just means your T cells aren't seeing them, which could be because it's out of you or they're in you and they're still hiding. Okay. All right. So I just want to make that as a point too. All right. So I don't think there is a done test for Lyme. All right. All right. Let me just do a quick screen share here. All right. So I'm going to show you a couple things here. So under testing, let's see here. There's an article I've written about, is there a done test for Lyme? It's this one called, Is There a Lyme Done Test? No. Okay. Take a look at that. You'll see. I would look at that one. I would also look at this other one called, Can the ELISpot Lyme test forecast the end? Both of these together, you'll see my conclusion is no, there is not adequate testing to see if we're done. Okay. All right. All right, then in terms of the end of treatment, what to do in terms of determining if you're done and what to be on at the end of treatment, take a look at my section called End of Treatment. Okay, and there is an article called Finished and How to Prevent Relapse. Okay, and in here, I'll just show it to you real quick. I know many of you may be wondering when I said you might use either mushrooms or transfer factors to support your immune system. I do lay it out here. So their immune system support, I either recommend a multi-immune mushroom formula or a multi-immune transfer factor mix. Okay. All right. So there you go. That's where I talk about those things. Okay. All right. Judith, thanks for that question. Good luck to you. Hello. Hi, Ruth. Let's see. I know that I think we answered that one earlier. It looks like you may have posted it a couple times. Let's see here. Hello, Chris. Hi, Dr. Ross. Question. Is a binder required to move Bartonella and Borrelia out of the cells and tissues and out of the body, as is the case with metals and mold? If glutathione is all that is necessary, please explain in detail how this is accomplished. Thanks for your help, Chris. So, Chris, no, binders actually do not have anything to do with treating the Lyme germ. So let me just kind of try to briefly describe this, okay? So when you have mold toxicity, what the problem is the mold toxins get trapped in you, all right? And what mold toxins are, they're toxins made by mold, and they're fatty substances, okay? They're made of fat. And we breathe them in from the world around us. They get into our lungs and then they get absorbed into our bloodstream. So they move into the bloodstream. So there's these fat toxins in our bloodstream. All right. Now, 75% of us have immune systems that work correctly, and our immune systems tag them so the immune system breaks those mold toxins down and they get moved out of the body. Okay. 25% of people, and these are the people that develop mold toxicity illness, 25% of people have genetic programming that doesn't allow their immune systems to tag those mold toxins correctly. So the immune system can't break them down. Those mold toxins then go to the intestines, and the intestine, one of its functions is to detox, remove fat toxins from the body, okay? And what the intestines is supposed to, the liver is supposed to do is it's supposed to take a fat toxin, process it, and turn it into a water-based toxin, meaning it can dissolve in water, move that out into the intestines, where as a water-based toxin, it mixes in our poop, and we poop it out. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen in a healthy person, all right? But if you're one of the 25% that have mold toxin illness, and those mold toxins are trapped in you, what happens is the liver is not able to process these mold toxins. So they go to the liver fat-based, they come out of the liver fat-based, not water-based now, but fat-based, and they go out into the intestines. And what happens is in the intestines, they get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, and they go back into the bloodstream again. All right, so we can't get them out. And they stay in the bloodstream. What they do is they cause neurologic dysfunction. They trigger excess cytokines to be made, so it can look just like the symptoms you have with Lyme disease, for instance, okay? All right, so the purpose of a binder is in the intestines. Those binders act like a sponge that mops up the fat, these fat toxins, okay? So it binds those fat toxins in the intestines, okay? All right. Now, Lyme and Bartonella are germs. They're bacteria. And a binder does not bind them, all right? Because they're not fat-based. Binders bind things that are fat-based. The binders do not bind up germs. All right. So anyhow, that I hope that answers your question. Glutathione is something that is used by the liver. Well, actually, glutathione has many functions. Glutathione is the reparative, restorative antioxidant made in every one of our cells. It fixes damage. Okay, that's one thing it does. It repairs things. Okay. Second thing that glutathione does is it is a very strong antioxidant, and if we take it, it can decrease oxidizing agents made by our immune system that trigger white blood cells to make cytokines, and it's cytokines that make us feel bad. So taking glutathione can help lower cytokines and can help us feel better. Okay, right. Third thing that glutathione does is glutathione is very useful. It's used by the liver to detox chemicals that the liver can detox. Okay, like I just said, the liver can't detox mold toxins. All right, it doesn't handle them correctly. All right, but other fatty substances the liver breaks down, it uses glutathione to break them down. All right, glutathione does not do anything to the germs directly, though. Okay, all right. I hope that answers your question, or it gives you some things to think about. All right, very good. Thanks for the question. A quick screen share here again. All right, so this is back at Treat Lyme. So if you're wondering what I was just talking about with mold toxin illness and binders, and what are the binders that you might use if you have mold toxin illness, take a look under my chapter on my detoxification chapter. All right, and take a look at this article called Mold Toxin Illness. Okay. And in here, I describe various binders that you might use, including charcoal, including clay, including a prescription called cholestyramine, etc. Okay. All right. Hello, Barry. Hi, Dr. Ross. Last November, I tested indeterminate for Babesia. I had chills, which finally subsided. I had panic attacks also, but citalopram has eliminated that. Now I get tingling in. Let's see. Now I get tingling in the soles of my feet. Is an IgG test that is indeterminate mean mildly positive? Barry, so an indeterminate IgG test for Babesia, I think probably what the testing you're talking about, IgG has the ability to see if your immune system is making antibodies against two strains of Babesia. One is called Babesia microti, and the other one is called Babesia decani. Okay, those are the two strains they test for. And when we get back a report, we get a test that gives us a level of what those antibodies are. How many are there in a sense, okay? And above a certain level, it's definitely a positive test. Below a certain level, it's definitely a negative test. And then in between those two levels, that's called indeterminate, okay? Indeterminate means it could either be weakly, it could be barely positive, or it could be barely negative. So it could be either way, unfortunately, okay? But here's the thing about Babesia. Our testing is not perfect. In fact, our testing is not good. And the issue with Babesia is that there probably are about 15 to 20 strains of Babesia, and yet we can only test through like an IgG for 2 strains. There are some other labs that can test for some other strains too. The issue is we don't have testing that picks up all the strains, okay? In fact, our testing misses most of the strains, all right? So what I would do in my practice is I didn't even bother doing Babesia testing. I looked at what the symptoms told me. If there were enough symptoms of Babesia, I would treat for Babesia, okay? So what kind of symptoms would I consider? Well, one is frontal headaches. Another one is air hunger. Another, meaning you're feeling you can't get enough air from time to time. Anxiety attacks could be. Sometimes people with Babesia get a bunch of cherry spots. Sometimes people with Babesia have a lot of dizziness or lightheadedness and difficulty maintaining blood pressure, for instance. Okay, those are some symptoms that you might think of about Babesia. I have a list written down if you want to take a look at that. But I would make my decisions based on what the symptoms would tell me. Okay? All right. So let me just do a screen share here on that too. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh, there we are. Got it. Okay. So take a look at my chapter on how to diagnose and take a look at this article called "It Could Be Bartonella Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs." Okay. And in here, I go through the various symptoms of babesia. I'm sorry, I left off night sweats too, but night sweats, temperature fluctuations, panic attacks, headaches in the front of head, feeling off balance while you walk, air hunger, racing, skipping of the heart, those small red spots I was describing. And sometimes people get a lot of deja vu experiences as well too, okay? If you have a number of these things, that is when I would wind up treating in my practice for babesia, okay? Thanks for that question, Barry. Carol says, hi, Marty. Hi, back at you, Carol. Bear with me. I've got some people that have posted their questions twice, and I'm coming to them, and I'm seeing I'm just removing them. So bear with me here for a minute. All right. Hold on here just a minute. Leo, I'm going to answer that one for you. All right. Leo asks, what is your opinion on hyperthermia? So hyperthermia means doing treatments that you immerse yourself in either very, very hot water or very, very hot clay, and you raise your body temperature typically above, I think it's above 103 degrees, and it's maintained maybe for 15 minutes or so, okay? I'm just giving you a general description, okay? The idea with hyperthermia comes to us from in the past when we didn't have antibiotics. It was actually a treatment that was used to treat syphilis, all right? And syphilis is, as many of you know, is a spirochete, just like Lyme is a spirochete. So in our attempts to try to find ways to get rid of Lyme, some people have started using hyperthermia again to kill Lyme. There is a clinic in Germany that uses it, but keep in mind, even when you go there, they're not using the hyperthermia exclusively. They're actually doing hyperthermic treatments, and they have you on IV antibiotics and oral antibiotics at the same time too, okay? Now, one benefit of when you get heated up like that is that it causes all the blood vessels in you to dilate up really big. So even the real small ones, which means when you're on antibiotics, they're going to go further into you. Okay, so you may get better killing from them too. All right, my experience in working with people that had been to the German clinic is that maybe 30 or 40% had some benefit, but it did not last. Okay, it was limited benefit. They did get some benefit. Now, the German clinic claims that the way it works is that by heating up, it can kill even resistant Lyme. It can kill Lyme anywhere in you. It can get it everywhere, basically. And my experience is I disagree with that, okay? Now, I'm going to show you something, too. I'm going to do a screen share, and then I'll show you this. So the California, or they're no longer, LymeDisease.org, which used to be called the California Lyme Disease Association, has got a program called My Lyme Data, where they're actually collecting information about people and trying to answer questions, okay? All right, and what I'm trying to show you here is from their website. So they did a study about what alternative treatment works for Lyme disease, what are their side effects, okay? And this, I'm pulling up the my Lyme data information, okay? So they ask patients, they just ask people that have enrolled, that are allowing information to be collected about them. They ask them which questions about what alternative therapies work. Okay, so for instance, I'm showing you the table here. This one is herbal protocols, and about 68% of people found that effective. Okay, sauna, 65% of people in the study reported benefit from saunas. Okay, Rife machines, 35% of people reported benefit from Rife machines. All right. Stem cell therapy. Now, I've reviewed this in my stem cell article. Only 3% of people found benefit from stem cell therapy. But here's the hyperthermia one. About 45% of people in this study said that they got benefit from hyperthermia. All right. Now, the trouble is it doesn't tell us whether those improvements were sustainable. Okay. And again, what I was just telling you is what I observed in my practice is maybe about 40% or so of people would get benefit, but I wasn't finding that benefit to be sustainable. It didn't last for months on end, for instance. Okay. So I disagree with the German clinic and their claims that heating up those germs kills them all and you're done treating. Okay. I think that's a too simplified view, actually. All right. All right. Thanks for that question, Leo. Hello, Carol. Let's see. Can you address not being able to sleep, having to use prescription meds? Once you start healing and sleeping, can you taper the meds during Lyme treatment? So sleep is one of the core things I recommend in my Lyme disease treatment protocol, the Ross Lyme support protocol. I think many of you are familiar with that. You can find it on my Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD website. It's on the top navigation menu. All right. So in that, I break down what I consider to be key things to getting well from Lyme. And one of those is getting sleep. And the reason you want to get sleep of about 7 to 9 hours is it's when you're sleeping that your immune system gets restored. Also, when you sleep, getting sleep helps deal with pain. It's going to make you able to tolerate pain better. Actually, pain levels go down when you get sleep. And finally, there's good studies that show when you get sleep, you can lower your cytokine levels. All right. And as many of you know about Lyme disease, if you followed any of my stuff, you see it all the time. I think Lyme disease is a syndrome of too many cytokines. So basically, cytokines are good and bad. When a white blood cell sees Lyme or sees any germ, it makes cytokines. All right. And on the good side, cytokines cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help them work better. Okay. But in excess, those cytokines but Lyme doesn't always do a good job getting, or the immune system doesn't always do a good job getting rid of Lyme. And often it tries harder and harder, and eventually it makes too many cytokines. All right. And it's too many cytokines that make you hurt, give you fatigue, make it so you can't sleep, disturb your brain function, interfere with how your hormones work, etc. Okay. So most of those Lyme symptoms you have are too many cytokine symptoms. Okay. And one way to lower those cytokines is get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay. Now, the tricky part is it's the excess cytokines that are in you that are disturbing your sleep centers. So it's a catch-22. You got to get sleep to lower cytokines. And yet it's the increased cytokines that are making it so you can't sleep. All right. So sometimes we have to intervene. We have to have you take things to get to sleep so that you can get that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And over time, as your germ load comes down, as your immune system starts working better, you'll start having less cytokines. And over time, you'll be able to get off those sleep medicines. Okay. So the majority of people that I treated for Lyme, we were able to get them off their prescription sleep medicines and their herbal sleep medicines over time. There are occasional people I wasn't able to, and I think that's because in some people, it's a small percentage, I believe what happens is I think the sleep centers get injured by Lyme. The parts of your brain that are supposed to control your sleep can, in some people, be permanently injured by Lyme. That's my sense of it. Okay. All right. So I hope that answered your question. Majority of people can get off their sleep medicines. Okay. All right. So what do I recommend for sleep? Let me just do a quick screen share. I know you didn't answer that, but there may be some people asking, and I'm just going to do a quick screen share on that. All right, let me go back here. Okay, so if you're wondering what kind of things do I suggest for sleep, take a look at my sleep chapter. I talk about natural medicines. I talk about basic steps like lifestyle things like avoid caffeine, don't work in bed, maybe even take a hot bath before you try to go to sleep. There's some lifestyle things you can do to get sleep. There's natural medicines that I recommend here. There's also prescription medicines, and even make mention of using THC. Marijuana often can be helpful for sleep too. Okay? All right. And of course, that is if you are in a place where you can get legal marijuana. Well, actually, marijuana of any kind, the THC chemical does a better job than CBD at helping with sleep. I outline that here in this article. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Carol. Thank you for the question. Let's see. There's another question that's got asked twice here. I'm just removing it. Hello, Leo. Let's see. Do you have essential oil protocols? I don't. And my experience, so in Lyme disease, many of you that have been at this for a while know about what I'm about ready to say. We have certain, what I call it treatments of the season. There are certain things that somebody gets some success with, and then everyone starts rushing to try it. Okay. And often over time, none of them wind up proving over time to be beneficial. Okay. So for instance, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, we went through a phase where most people were trying essential oil protocols. And what I would see is there would be a small handful of people that got benefit, but the great majority of people did not get benefit. All right. Now, what is interesting about this is more recently, there is a researcher named Ying Zhang who has been doing research out of Johns Hopkins University. He's a medical doctor that comes to us from the world of actually tuberculosis. And tuberculosis is another germ that's difficult to treat because it can develop something called persister cells. And Lyme disease, one of the reasons we're starting to think Lyme is hard to treat is we now know that Lyme also can develop these things called persister cells. Okay. Persister cells are basically a form of the germ that after it's been exposed to antibiotics for a while, studies suggest that maybe 20% of Lyme spirochetes and Lyme cyst, those two forms of the Lyme germ, have the ability to go into hibernation. They just slow their metabolism down and start ignoring stuff, okay? Ignoring the antibiotics, actually, right? That's called a persister cell. And Ying Zhang has been looking at various combinations of drugs. And more recently, he's published a study looking at oils, essential oils. All right. Now, on his experiments, though, keep in mind, are done on petri dishes, okay, in a laboratory. They haven't been done on humans. And although I am very interested in his experiments that show that various oils work to kill, I think rosemary was one of them, garlic. I read the article. I'm just not remembering off the my head. I think it looks impressive. Okay. However, I think the issue is that the delivery of essential oils to get them into our bloodstream where they can kill germs that are in us, I don't think it happens. I don't think that they're absorbed in a way that's meaningful to killing germs. And I think that's what we found out happening with our a number of people trying to do essential oil treatments about 3 or 4 years ago. We went through a phase where a lot of people were trying those. On the whole, most people didn't have benefit. And I think what the issue is one of absorption. I don't think we've worked out the best way to get those absorbed into the bloodstream to actually kill the germs. Maybe somebody will. Maybe Ying Zhang will come up with a way to do that. But it is interesting. His research has gotten some renewed interest now in essential oils again. But the issue is they work on a petri dish. We're not petri dishes, okay? Sometimes things that work on petri dishes do work in us. We can get some ideas about things to try in humans. However, many things on a petri dish that look like they work great there will not work well in humans, okay? All right. I hope that gives you some information there. Thanks for the question, Leo. Hello, Bettina. Thank you so much for all you do. You're welcome. I am wondering if you've heard of the Bob Peck protocol using electricity, PEMF, colloidal silver, and ozone water. I seem to be having some results with this protocol with my Lyme. What do you recommend for brain swelling symptoms of Lyme? Okay. So I am not familiar with the Bob Peck protocol. So it would be hard for me to say whether it's helping you or not helping you. And then in terms of brain swelling symptoms, swelling symptoms could mean many things. I would need to know more. When you say swelling, what is it causing? Is it give you your head a feeling of fullness? Are you having burning pain in your head? Are you having achy pain in your head? What exactly do you mean by brain swelling? I would need to know more what the symptoms are. Okay. And obviously, I in this kind of a format, I can't ask you those questions. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer your question. All right. Thanks for the question, though, Bettina. Good luck to you. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Dr. Ross, forgot to ask. For night cramps in the legs and feet, what muscle relaxer works best? Baclofen no longer works. I can't take magnesium supplements, thanks. Okay. So I'm not sure if you've worked with your physician, but you may even consider doing prescription ones like something called Robaxin. There's another one called Flexeril that you could take at night. They make you sleepy, but that would be appropriate for night. And then sometimes for night cramps, actually an old treatment that we would use on older people, because it's very common that older people get nighttime leg cramps, is to use quinine. Quinine tablets can be helpful for night cramps as well too. But those are the things you might want to talk with your physician about. Okay? All right. Thanks for the question, Brenda. Good luck to you. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. What are your thoughts on getting live blood analysis? I'm skeptical. That's what I would say. These spirochetes are so small, it's going to be really hard to see them with a regular microscope. I'm very suspicious of what these people are seeing under the microscope and then trying to say it's Lyme. Okay. That's my comments on that. Thanks for the question, Lisa. All right. Well, listen, everyone, I'm pooping out here tonight. I'm actually going to call it quits about 6 minutes early here. So it's been good being here with everyone tonight. I hope you'll join me next week. We do have another one scheduled for next week. Keep your eyes open for the email tomorrow morning, probably sometime after between 9:30 and 10 Central Standard Time. Sometimes I get a little earlier. We'll see. But look at that email. It'll have information it'll notify you that the recording is ready, number one, but it'll also have information on how to sign up for the next one as well, too. Okay. I've enjoyed seeing everyone here tonight, or at least, well, not truly seeing you. You got to see me, but seeing your names and your questions. Those are wonderful questions tonight. And I hope you join me next week, too. Good night, everyone.